I'm here in Black Blood's kitchen, and she just took some jars of herbs off her shelf and rolled us up a couple of joints. She's given me tea and a joint, and she sat down across the table from me, and she says, "Let's talk." She said, "You asked about this question about theta brainwave state and the potential and power it has for the human being. I want to talk to you about that. You know, these humans have all these words to categorize ideas because it helps the brain, it helps the human brain to understand these things. But the truth is that these categories are completely man-made. You know, I hesitate to use the word completely, speaking in such absolutes and such in this manner, in this topic especially, because these categories don't come out of a vacuum. They come from a place, a generalization, a recognition of patterns, a recognition of tendencies. But it is also important that we don't get too caught up in these categories. And it's important that we understand that these categories are not real. They're just vague ideas, containers to help the human brain understand these concepts. Now, the truth of it is that we talk about theta brainwave state as if it's this discrete state, and it absolutely is not. So our brain is producing different wavelengths and expressing at different wavelengths in every moment, all the time, even at the same time, different. So we have a predominant brainwave state, typically. And as we can choose, align, and train, embody, experience certain brainwave states, and whether we do this consciously or just the natural, just living naturally is the same, it may be quite appropriate to think about this as riding waves, as catching waves, as looking out upon an ocean, let's say, as for a metaphor, and choosing which wave to ride, and then watching the pattern of that wave. And when we decide, we join that wave, and we coax that wave, and we ride that wave, and we attune to that wave. We let that wave move us. We let that wave take us. And that is similar to what it's like with the brainwave state. So in general, humans move in and out of various brainwave states, again, every moment, at the same moment, but also just throughout the day, throughout different activities. Different predominant brainwave states tend to be present for different activities. For example, when we are driving, when we are focusing, when we are concentrating, let's say when we're driving and we're paying attention, let's say we're driving a new route, somewhere new, we may be paying attention and be on high alert. And this is an expression of a beta brainwave state. It is a faster brainwave state, which allows us to process information more quickly, to take in lots of information, to stay focused. When it becomes too beta or too active, that's when we experience that as anxiety or agitation. And the way to tap into our deeper levels of awareness is actually to slow our brain waves down. And this isn't this big, magical, specialized skill that some people are born with and some people are not, or some people have to go to school for many years to learn or train or whatever. It is simply just natural. We as humans go in and out of these brainwave states at all times. So when we can do it more intentionally, more consciously, we can learn why and what different brainwave states to embody, to invoke and then embody for different purposes, then we've got some real keys to life. So when we are focused, we are in a beta brainwave state. And everything below there, every brainwave state that is slower than that, gradually brings us more and more into connected awareness, attunement with our body, as opposed to our body and our body's intelligence, as opposed to the external world. Now, when we are primarily focused on the external world, we are at a beta brainwave state, and at times an alpha brainwave state. And when we are focused internally, we are at a lower alpha brainwave state, and we are at a theta brainwave state. When we are at a delta brainwave state, we are in a state of deep receptivity, but it is a state of complete non-responsiveness to the external world. All awareness is within at that point. And it takes significant stimulation from the external world, such as like a loud noise or something, to disrupt that level, the intensity of internal awareness that when we were in a delta brainwave state, which is the slowest brainwave state, that is the state when we were in deep sleep. Now, when we are not quite in a delta, but we're not awake, that space of experience between sleep and wakefulness is we are in the theta brainwave state. And when we were in a little bit faster brainwave state, we were in an alpha brainwave state. An alpha brainwave state is a very natural, common state to be in when we are watching TV, when we are meditating, when we are doing pranayama, yoga, things like that. That brainwave state is characteristic of being aware of your surroundings, the external world, and also being aware of your internal world. You can have meditative downloads, for example, from an alpha brainwave state. It's a great state for channeling, for example. Whereas theta is a deeper state when you are much less aware of the external world, but still somewhat aware of the external world. It makes for a great brainwave state to explore the internal information while being able to work with a guide in the external world, so that you can fully surrender to the internal experience while still having an anchoring to the external world, which allows you to use that space and navigate that internal world intentionally and with purpose. Now, the question originally is, what is the value of accessing the theta brainwave state? What is the benefits of that for the human being? This is the question that was asked moving into this experience. Now, what I have been alluding to and not naming here, when we go from external awareness to internal awareness, what we are becoming aware of and in tune with is our body information, the information of our body intelligence. That is cellular memory. That is the subconscious mind. So when we slow our brainwave states and we move out of external awareness and we move into internal awareness, what we're doing is connecting with our cellular memory, the information of our body. Now, the magic of the theta brainwave state is that we can navigate this internal space while still having an anchoring to the outside world in the form of a guide, in the form of someone who is helping us to navigate this space. Absolutely, we can navigate this internal space without a guide. I do it on the regular. However, there is, especially without practice and experience, a tendency, one, to fall asleep once you're in a deep theta brainwave state. And also, sometimes it can be hard to maintain the balance between keeping enough conscious awareness to navigate the subconscious purposefully and with intention, rather than having it being a passive experience that ultimately turns into maybe a dream or being asleep. So with practice though, however, you can absolutely spend much time in your theta brainwave state. And as I speak, I'm literally in this balance between an alpha/theta brainwave state, because I have spent many years practicing processes and developing processes that allow me to access different brainwave states at will for various purposes. And I'm aware of what those purposes are and how I can use those different brainwave states for those different purposes. In fact, I also have helped many, many, many hundreds and hundreds of people to cultivate the same skills and capabilities as well. So it is possible to navigate a theta brainwave state yourself on your own. However, the real superpower now, when we're asking the question, what are the benefits of the theta brainwave state, to really maximize the benefits of the theta brainwave state is to work with a guide. When you have a guide on the other side who is fully aware, but also in a trance-like, more alpha trance-like state guiding you, that allows you to fully surrender to the theta state without falling asleep. You could get to a much deeper level of trance, theta trance, when you can just relax into those experiences, into your inner experience, and trust that the guide on the outside is helping you through it all. You don't have to maintain a level of focused awareness to stay awake, for example, which pulls you out of that theta experience a bit. It prevents you from going as deeply as you could. So this is one of the benefits. Now, when you are able to get to that deeper place and to fully surrender to your external experience with the guidance of the guide that's on the outside, the facilitator. Now, this is magic stuff here. This is the stuff that's missing from conventional mental health care. This is the stuff that the ancestors have been doing for generations and generations and generations across the globe. Some may call it a shamanic process, though we have lots of connotations around the word and misunderstanding around the word. But what it's really referring to is the process and state of moving in and out of various trance states, of various states of awareness, of accessing altered states of awareness for different purposes to navigate other realms. Because the thing is that our bodies, though most people in this day and age believe that the body is a meat suit, a dead, inert, just a nothing thing, a vessel. Most people think the body is a vessel, and it just couldn't be further from the truth. The body is an extraordinarily intelligent, living, ancient, brilliant form of technology. Okay, it is alive and brilliant. It is the portal to the other realms for us. It is how we as humans access the other realms, access the other dimensions, access what's out there. The way that we access what's out there, quote unquote out there, seemingly out there, is through inside, going within. The way to access what's out there is to go within. Our bodies are literally the portal to what's out there. And there's an infinite number of dimensions between this third dimensional reality and what we are referring to as out there, which is also what we're referring to as an expression of the third dimensional reality. However, within that are so many different scales of existence. For example, just to simplify, a cell in our body has its own level of awareness of its function, its job, its role, its existence. It has its own level of awareness, which it can use to make choices and to play out its role, basically. We as humans are doing the exact same thing as a cell of Earth. We are a scale of consciousness, a scale of awareness. The cell in our arm is a scale of consciousness, a scale of awareness. Now, Gaia, the Earth, is a larger scale. She is the collectivity of us in all of her life forms. And so her consciousness is the breadth, the scale of all of us. So in the same way that we are the breadth of all of our cells, she is the breadth of all of us. So these are the scales of perception and existence and awareness. And so as Gaia is one scale of dimension, then if you pan out to the solar system, that is a whole nother scale of intelligence and awareness, and on and on and on and so forth. And when you can get to the complete total collectivity of that, which is impossible for the human mind to comprehend, that is the largest scale of awareness of, one may say, God, source, the all. That is the largest scale of intelligence and awareness, and it is the largest scale of our intelligence. We are a cell of that. Therefore, there is no separation between us and that level of intelligence, and there is infinite dimensions between us and that totality of existence. And it's not just in the linear way of small, medium, large, which is part of it as well, but it's in every single direction in every single moment. So that every single pivot point or node that is spreading off into every direction also pivot points into every direction. This is a level of multitude which is not, the human brain can't comprehend. But the point of it all is that we are a cell of the all. We are connected to it all, and we actually can perceive from all dimensions of existence and reality to some degree. And we do that by going in through our bodies. Our bodies are the portal to what's out there. Our bodies are the portal to our ancestral awareness. Our bodies actually, we are different levels of awareness on their own. So our heart is an extraordinarily intelligent being. Our wombs, our gut is an incredibly intelligent being. Our guts have more brain cells than our brains. Our hearts have nerve cells, brain cells. These are living beings, living forms of intelligence, which are discrete and also part of us, and which have their own unique perspective of perceiving, of awareness, that we actually can tap into and learn from. We can tap into the intelligence of our hearts and learn from our heart. And we can do this by accessing it through the theta brainwave state. The theta brainwave state allows us to access the various levels of intelligence that make up our body, and of which our bodies are a portal. So these statements I've made so far, if I were to go into expand on all of these things and all the possibilities that this opens up and implies, this recording would be forever. It wouldn't end, because the applications are endless. This is probably one of the most challenging things about talking about trance work and teaching about trance work, and this process that I'm referring to is accessing theta brainwave states at will. We use a process called Trancework to do so. Trancework is a process of using visual and vocal techniques to bring our brain into different brainwave states at will, intentionally for specific purposes. And so when we access the theta brainwave state, just a few things we can do when we are able to access our subconscious memory. One of the most relevant things that we can do, most applicable things, and most, I should say, needed, relevant, yes, is the ability to harvest stored trauma. So when we have traumatic experiences, especially prelingual, but regardless, because the point when we're prelingual, the problem that presents is that how do we process something? How do we heal from something if it's prelingual? We don't even have words for it. How do we even experience it and navigate it? It kind of blows our circuits. Well, once we have words for these things, we don't have systems in this culture to process or understand trauma or to respond properly to trauma. So it is inevitable that if you are a human living on this planet, you have unresolved stored trauma in your body. Now, your body's hanging on to that for a purpose, because the body doesn't ever have an experience that it doesn't learn from. That is the most innate design of the human body, is that it learns from every single experience it has. So every single experience it has is recorded. Now, an experience that caused extreme trauma, loss, anything, like the intensity of that body going into basically shock of believing it's doomed, it's not safe, more than not safe, but like its demise is inevitable. That's the trauma shock that the body is experiencing hormonally. And when we experience that level of intensity of trauma, and we don't process it, we don't heal from it, it is stored in the body until we can. And that is so that we learn from it. So that is why I call the process of releasing trauma harvesting trauma, because we are not just releasing it, letting it go. We are actually taking the important information, which is the whole reason it's stored in our body in the first place. We're taking that information, we're integrating it appropriately, and then we're going to get rid of the painful signature of it, the pain signature that comes with it. We're going to get rid of that pain signature, which basically, in practical terms, exists as limiting beliefs, faulty beliefs that shape our behavior and perceptions, responses, and everything. So when we're harvesting stored trauma, we are accessing this information that's stored in our bodies, we're taking out what is needed from it, we're digesting it, we're integrating that into our framework, our understanding, because the point is that the body wants to make sure that shit's not going to happen again. So if we just forget that event happened, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that, then we can't protect ourselves from that. And now I want to address this because many people do have suppressed memory, and this is a way that the body protects itself. But even when a person has suppressed memory, they still have the hypervigilance that's associated with the signs of that thing that they forgot. For example, they could have been abused by a family member, let's say, and they may not remember that specific experience anymore, but they may have a fear of sleepovers at a cousin's house or something. And that fear may seem irrational, but it's stemmed in this experience that is consciously forgotten. The mind does that to protect itself, but the body will never forget. The body will always hold on to those things to make sure that the being is safe. And the only way to let go of that is to actually take the important information of it and to digest that. Now, what that looks like is essentially reframing and coming to understand, because understand that everything is hormonal. Everything is a chemical reality. These aren't just abstract concepts and abstract ideas. Even beliefs are not just abstract ideas. Beliefs are actually physical structures. Beliefs are actually chemical realities that are so reinforced over time that they created literal physical structures and pathways in your brains that created those habits, so that those things that maybe once took a lot of thought or concentration or focus now become just natural, second nature. That's what a habit is. So a habit and addiction, all those things, those are physical realities that are created through the consistency of a specific hormonal reality. Okay. So the process here is really about shifting the hormones. That's the root of this all. But we experience those hormones as feelings and as thoughts and beliefs, especially around our self-image. That's what they become. So, for example, we may come to consult a negative experience we had that is stored in our body as trauma, that is stored in our body as false beliefs about ourselves and the world. And we may have an opportunity then through Trancework to look at that experience not from the eyes of a 6-year-old child, but from the eyes of a grown adult. And we will do this from a place of cultivated resilience practice. We're not going to go in and raw dog and re-experience these things. We're going to go in after we have cultivated energetic resilience to go in and be able to see these things through a lens of compassion, through a lens of love, through a lens of trust and faith, that even these worst things that ever happened to you are actually blessings. They're actually gifts. And the only way to actually unwrap those gifts and to have those gifts and embody those gifts is to harvest, do the harvesting work, is to sit with that pain, that experience, that feeling, to sit with it and to digest it from this new point of perspective. And when we can look at it from this new point of perspective, then we literally can alchemize the chemistry around that. We can alchemize the way our body hormonally interprets and then seals that in as an operating system. We change that. So sometimes this is about taking back power where power was lost. Sometimes it's about having compassion for our perpetrators. Sometimes it's about understanding the context of the experience and how it was actually a blessing, even though it was maybe the hardest thing you ever experienced before. And when you are in a theta brainwave state and you are coming to these awarenesses and seeing these awarenesses, they are not just, well, there's no such thing as just a thought, but they're not just abstract thoughts. They are thoughts which have a hormonal correspondence, which all thoughts do. And so when you can shift your thoughts from saying basically, essentially, I am a victim who was violated and I was wronged, to I'm so grateful for this thing that happened because now I know this and I can do this and I've served it and used it in these different ways. It might sound like it's not much, but when you can do that work and you could genuinely feel and embody that from a theta brainwave state, you are literally shifting the alchemy, you're shifting the chemistry, you're shifting the hormones of that experience. And that's all we are as hormones. I want you to really understand that's all we are, and that's all reality is hormones. Everything we feel and experience is just the hormonal interpretation of all that stuff, the hormonal response of all that stuff. So when you can go from feeling as if a certain event was the deepest violation you've ever experienced and made you believe that you're not safe in the world and you have to do this, this, and this to be safe in the world, whether it's conscious or not, And then you can shift from that to being like, oh my God, that was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. And now it freed me to do this, this, and this. Your body chemistry seriously changes. It literally changes as a response to that. That is the shift and the change. And so when you do that, it actually releases the faulty beliefs that go along with that, because now if you understand that that was actually a blessing that happened, that equipped you for whatever you've done or are gonna do, then you can understand, like, maybe if it's just even the shift of like going from saying I'm a victim to saying I'm blessed, I'm divinely protected. All of those things, those are self-beliefs that have a chemical correspondence. And the more you think each of them, the more is going to be your default neural wiring, meaning your self-image. Your self-image is the container that your self-image defines the perimeter of your possibilities. Your self-image defines the perimeter of your possibilities. So when you can go in and you can reface a situation, reinterpret a situation as a situation that victimized you versus empowered you, that's going to shift your self-image. And what that shift in self-image does is actually changes your operating system so that you're operating from a place of knowing you're divinely protected. How are you going to show up differently in the world when you believe that you're a victim versus when you believe that you are divinely protected? How are you going to make choices differently based on those two self-identities? How are you going to seize opportunities based on those two different identities? How are you going to interpret good things that happen to you based on those two identities? How are you going to interpret bad things that happen to you based on those two identities? It changes everything. And the thing is that unlike when we're in our waking world and we're like, okay, I want to be this type of person, I'm going to become this person and see myself this person. When you're doing that at the conscious mind level, the best hope you can have is willpower and repetition. But you're battling uphill. That is definitely the conventional way. Affirmations, keep repeating every day, write it down, see it all over the place. There's nothing wrong with these things. They are great rewiring tools. But when we do the work at the theta state, you're planting a seed at the root, at the base, at the essence. You're planting the seed. So there's not all this extra. It's basically almost like braces. The affirmations, for example, it's like they exert this tiny amount of energy or effort or whatever to whatever the effect outcome that you're looking for, but it's just such a tiny amount. So if you stay consistent for a long period of time, then you can get it. But when you're doing it at the theta brainwave state, it is not necessary for all of that. Absolutely, mantras and affirmations and things like that, after you have planted those seeds, can help to reinforce and help you anchor it in, but it's not necessary like that. The forcing, the willpower. And here's the thing is when you are just doing it on affirmations and things like this, you're relying on willpower, you are always going to, that's when you get that saying of like, every time I take one step forward, I get knocked 2 steps back. It's going to be like that, because how can you be perfectly consistent all the time? Like, you are going to fall off the wagon, so to speak. If that's your main thing is just doing your affirmations every day, you're a human being. What if you got a funeral to go to today? What if you got a week where you're sick? And then you fall off the wagon. So, and also there's the rubber band effect with this type of approach with willpower. It's like you're pushing, you're disciplined, you got it, you're motivated, great. And then maybe you have maybe not so much motivation, because that's nothing more human than that, than having motivation go in and out of experience. And so then you have what we call a rubber band effect. So you've made these great changes, but then you bounce right back to old habits. That's what happens when you try to rely on willpower to make actual change. But when you work at the subconscious level, when you work at the theta brainwave state, you are planting those seeds so that it literally changes the wiring, so that it is a new operating system that you're putting in. So this is one of the deepest benefits of change work through Trancework, of healing through the theta brainwave state. Because this message is so long already, we're going to talk about some of all the other benefits of trance work, or I should say accessing theta brainwave states via trance work, another time.